How's that thunderstorm going?
I think hopefully it's like one that's like stretching from like south all the way like up the East Coast. So
Yeah.
hopefully it passed through, but who knows? We started having like flickers with the power, and then all the tornado warnings were popping off on all my phones. I'm like, oh God, here we go.
Nice. Oh man. Yeah, that's something we're not too familiar with over here in Washington. So
Yeah, well, even us, like you don't think of Florida and tornadoes. Hurricanes, yes, but tornadoes, no. But lately we've had tornadoes within our hurricanes also, so that's
crazy.
never fun.
Oh man. All right. Well, we'll see how it goes, right?
Yeah.
Great. So it's Katrina Cain, right? Not, is it Kasserek?
Yeah, Katrina, that's my maiden name.
Okay.
So and that's my email.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. Trying to change your email would just be too much work. So
Totally. Changing your name is actually a really huge pain in the ass.
it really is.
Yeah. You don't realize until some guy like made fun of it before I was married. He's like, oh, she's just whining. And then I did it and I was like, you're a jerk. Like that was actually a huge pain. Like, you know how many places you have to change your name? And no one
So
places like prove it. I'm like, I don't need to prove it. Who are you?
yeah. And then you have like nobody cares until that one moment.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, I need it to match. Or like a credit card. It's like it's me. Like that's my last name. They're like, I need it to match your ID. I'm like, oh Jesus.
Yeah, totally. I still have credit cards in my maiden name. I'm like, I know I need to change it. But then it was the same situation where they're like, oh, your mailing address has to match, but I had moved. And I was like, God, that makes no sense, you guys. It's still me. Yeah. Great. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and jump into this. You are in Florida.
Yes.
Okay.
The panhandle.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your background, because you're in law enforcement, but you're also a firearms instructor. So what brought you to this point?
Yes, so we started Alpha Female Tactical in 2020. We moved out here in 2017. I got my CCW in 2018, and it was a terrible, not a, it was a terrible class.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those, they rush through everything, they go over the laws, and then basically, they try to pitch you on the insurance, and then they hand you a loaded gun, you shoot one bullet, and they're like, congratulations, you can now conceal carry in the state of Florida. So I was like, wow. And I just saw how, the other women in the class just felt so like, cool, I didn't learn anything. I have a gun, and now it's going to go right back in the safe because nobody told me how to, load it properly. They didn't show me grip or anything just now. And now we're constitutional carry in Florida, so you don't even need a permit anymore. But when I came home, I told my husband, he's like, hey, how was your CCW class? I'm like, it's a good thing you already taught me how to shoot because I only shot one bullet. He's like, wow, that's terrible. And his background is military. I don't have any kind of military or law enforcement background until now. He's former Marine Corps, Special Forces, and then counterterrorism instructor in Vegas for 10 years. So, like, when we first started dating, it was important to him that I learned how to do all those things to keep myself safe. So he just kind of had this epiphany, like, why don't I use my skills and my knowledge and my education and, credentials to provide a learning environment for the women? And he was raised by his single grandmother with 5 sisters. So it was just really important to him that the women, get this extra training. Because he noticed when he was in Vegas, a lot of the male instructors would kind of ignore the female students because either one, they didn't know how to interact with them, or two, they only knew how to interact inappropriately, or three, it was just like, it's a woman, like she doesn't really need to learn this kind of thing. So he's like, we had some women, even that were military from other countries he trained, that were phenomenal and better than some of the dudes. He's like, why not put the effort? So he had this idea of like a bodyguarding school program for women, and that's pretty much how we started Alpha Female Tactical back in 2020 with just our self-defense classes, and then we found a shooting range that allows us to do, all of the tactical training and what we do. So that was awesome. A blessing.
So you're like a partnership with your husband as you run your company?
Yes.
Awesome. I've met so many couples, I'm gonna call them power couples for sure, because it's just such a fun thing to do with your significant other, especially when you're on the same page with something like that. Like my husband and I started Wagoa, and then I've met down in SHOT Show, several couples that were doing this together. And it's so inspiring. I love it.
Yeah, it's cool because then and him and I, we both come from such different backgrounds. So then we're able to kind of connect with different students in different ways. Like he came from a pretty rough background in Oakland, California. So, he can kind of relate with some people who maybe have been through certain trauma in that sense. I've had my own experiences in life and, situations where I'm like, wow, I wish I knew then what I know now. And
yeah,
can with some of the other students.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and you have a fitness background, right? I mean, obviously looking at you, you do, but professionally you do, right?
So I started personal training, got my NASM certification back in like 2015 when I was living in Vegas, and I did that for a while, even out to here in Florida. Was doing fitness, and then COVID actually kind of killed that because you had to social distance or teach online. And I taught at Orange Theory, and Orange Theory, you get paid per person in class. So then when you have to cut the class in half to social distance everybody on the treadmills, it cut my pay, more than half essentially. I was kind of like, wow, what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life literally just got, stripped from me completely.
Yeah.
And so let's see if there's another route. And then I had some friends in the area that were going through the firefighter program, and I was kind of like, maybe law enforcement or firefighting, that might be kind of cool. It's job security, like they're always needed. And so I kind of talked with my husband. I said, what do you think about me going to the police academy? And he was like, what? Like, that's kind of random. And I was like, and then I found out that the agency that I'm employed with now, they did a sponsorship program. So they'll pay you as an employee and pay for your schooling. So that was pretty. So basically, I jumped into that and did the schooling in the academy while getting hired on with the agency that I'm with now.
Yeah. What about, and you don't have to answer this, censorship is not dead, but you are in Florida, so you may be a bit more protected, but with your personal training business, they were able to shut you down so easy. And I know you're working for somebody else, doing Orange Theory and stuff, but do you ever worry about another shutdown and how that could affect your training business? I know it's a side gig, so maybe that's not going to impact you as much, but like if that was your main gig, how do you think you'd approach it?
Yeah, I mean, you always find something to do. I could go back to personal training. I could go back to catering sales. Like, I've done so many different things. I worked for Marriott hotels for a long time. So I feel like I've done a lot of different things that I would be able to find something else to do. Things happen. It's like even with government jobs, the government shuts down every once in a while and things happen. So I feel like you just kind of persevere and push through, and you got to figure out the next step. So
Yeah.
I'd like to think that something's not going to shut us down, but with all the firearms related drama and
Right.
everything, you know how things are going.
Right.
You just never know.
Could be worse than COVID, but in a totally different way, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yep.
you never know what's coming. It's like, can you roll with it or not? Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you run a company called Alpha Female Tactical, which sounds really cool. And I was wondering if you notice a certain type of person that comes to train with you typically. Are you getting a lot of beginners? Because that might sound, I don't know, does that intimidate them? Or do you get someone who's trying to just enhance the skills that they already have?
We get both. Majority of our students are definitely beginners, and they come for a lot of different reasons. A lot of them, it's because they've already taken some sort of firearms class and had a really negative experience, whether it was just a male-dominated class or they went to the range with their significant other who got frustrated with them or didn't teach them properly, or, it's like going to the gym sometimes with maybe your spouse or, something and just not having a good time with it. And then it kind of puts that bad taste in your mouth. So we get a lot of those. We get a lot of women here locally that are either single moms or we got a lot of military out here. So a lot of them are wives to military. And so they know, my husband's not here all the time and I'm home alone with the kids. I should probably learn how to defend myself. Because you get those who think, oh, well, my husband's military, so like I'm safe automatically. And then you get the ones who are like, no, he's gone 6 months to 8 months out of the year, and I'm alone with the babies. And then we get quite a few that have had previous trauma, so they know, I don't want that to happen again. I need to either get armed or learn self-defense or do something.
Mm-hmm. So what's your class structure like? Do you do full days of training? Do you do multi-day training? And then do you get a lot of repeat customers that come back and want to learn even further?
Mm-hmm. We do usually 4-hour classes. You can book either a 2-hour private if you're brand new and you just want 2 hours of like basic grip safety, the fundamentals. We have our 4-hour class, which is our alpha class. That's our intro class. And so we're going to go over the fundamentals, safety, grip, stance. But we like to introduce, because 99% of our students are coming purely for self-defense, because eventually they want to get comfortable to carry a gun in case of a home invasion or in case of an incident. Most of them aren't doing it. Some branch off and say, oh, I want to keep doing this and maybe do it for sport or for fun, but most of them is just for self-defense. So we start introducing basic movement as well into our classes, getting off the X, maybe, shooting from a kneeling position to kind of mimic some basic training you might have to do in a real world scenario. You may have to duck behind an engine block in a public parking lot. You may have to hide behind the couch or kitchen counter in your house if someone's trying to break in. Start introducing that even in our beginner class, just to kind of say, hey, this is what it's going to be like in real life.
Yeah. No, I definitely support that. So many beginners classes, it's just overwhelm of all the wrong stuff, in my opinion. And so to be able to incorporate a little bit of that in your beginners classes is really amazing. And also, like, these women, they come in and I don't know what it is they're expecting, but they're not getting what they need. And so
Yes.
how are we going to rise and meet that? And I think it's amazing when a woman realizes like, no, I think some private instruction would be best. Whereas for me, when I first started out, I think that would have scared the hell out of me to do a private. And I don't know why that would be intimidating or scary, but it was for me. But now that I know more of what to expect and what kind of value you can get out of some one-on-one training, like it is the way to go, in my opinion. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I like when people sign up for privates because then it's just easier from an instructor perspective to really hone in on what they're doing, what they're learning. Because when you have a group setting, even if it's a small group, we get a lot of like office teams or girlfriends, or we'll get the group of moms that all live on the same street and all their husbands travel. So they all come together and take a class. But it's hard to really individualize the training when you have a group, obviously, and then every single person is new. So it's like fitness. Everything kind of always reminds me of being a personal trainer. You can do so much more in your one-on-one PT sessions versus a whole group class and trying to make sure everybody's safe, everyone's doing it correctly. You can't give that 100% attention to every single student.
Right. Well, and the other thing is, you even during especially during the more advanced training courses that you'll take, they always want to give a whole bunch of time to the weakest link, which nothing against someone who doesn't have the skills to match everybody else. That's what I'm trying to say. Just that it holds everyone else back who is ready for more. And so
Right.
if that's a frustration for anybody watching, it's time you got to sign up for the in-person or for the one-on-one type of instruction. That's where you're going to get the most benefit if you're more advanced.
Absolutely. And we try to really have, an appropriate amount of instructors for our classes. So if it's just 2 or 3, one instructor can usually handle the class by themselves. If there's 4, 5, or 6, at least 2 instructors. So we try to have like one instructor per 2 to 3 students.
Nice.
So that way, for safety, of course, or if there is that one person that needs a little extra help, or they're just showing signs of they may not be safe, or, whatever the reason, they can be pulled aside with one of the instructors while the either other single instructor or other 2, however many, can focus on the rest of the class. And it doesn't take away from anybody.
What's your max capacity for a class?
We usually max out at like 10 or 12. It just depends, mainly because and it's all going to determine on how the student will book the class, so we know ahead of time. Because our issue is a lot of times people are like, I have 10 people, can we come like 2 days from now? And I'm like, no, because now all my instructors also have other day jobs and other priorities, so I can't get them prepared in time. So it depends. If they can plan it out accordingly ahead of time, and then as a business owner, I can have everybody, prepared, then we can do even 15 to 20 if we needed to. But usually we'll max out at about 10 to 12. I don't have about 3, maybe 4 instructors available.
Okay.
Like I said, depending on the time frame.
Awesome. Cool. Is there any traits you've noticed that set your students apart from just the average Joe?
I feel like they always have some kind of internal drive to them. I feel like a woman who's decided to pick up a firearm and learn, something was ignited inside of them. Like I said, whether it was previous trauma or they're actually paying attention to what's going on in the world and realizing the world's not as, sprinkles and rainbows and butterflies as sometimes people say it is. Real things happen. And even here locally, something usually happens and then people are like, I need to learn how to shoot a gun, or they learn from a real life experience. I had 2 women finally come take a class with me. One even admitted, I've been following you on TikTok and Instagram for like 2.5 years, and I finally just came to take a class. I'm like, cool, what, like, why now? And she's like, we had a barricaded subject with a gun inside of our townhome complex recently that your police agency had to respond to, so I figured I should probably get a gun. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, unfortunately, it takes that kind of situation for not just women, men too, but
Yeah.
primarily women are waiting for something bad to happen to scare them bad enough to be like, oh, what if I have to fight back? And and they realize just how vulnerable they really are. Criminals, they're not like you and me.
Mhm.
They're not, well, a lot of the time they're not smart, and they're also completely reckless, and they don't care if they hurt you.
No.
And they're usually high on something or drunk or both.
Mm-hmm.
Judgment is completely impaired for that plus mental illness. And if it's not that, then it's some kind of gang related activity, at least around where I live. So each place probably has its own flavor of criminal that causes trouble. But we keep expecting like, oh, if I just get these ladies are like, I'll just shoot him in the leg and it'll stop. It'll stop the threat. I'm like, I don't think so. And there's a lot to unpack with shooting somebody in the leg. But like, if you're really high on something or even drunk, really drunk,
Yeah, it's not going to stop them.
no, it's not going to stop them.
No.
So they're not prepared mentally for a complete psycho, and that would be the type of person that would be more likely to attack you. Is it likely you'll get attacked? No. Most people are not getting attacked on a daily basis.
Right.
We're aware of this, and that's why most people aren't carrying guns, sadly. But, it's for that unexpected type of situation when you don't get a choice. That's the day.
Yep.
So you can either save yourself or you can't.
And then you don't know, how your body's going to react under that stress until you're in that moment. You can train and train and train sometimes, but until you're in that situation, when you have that adrenaline dump, your body, your fight or flight or freeze reaction that's what comes out. And I feel like a lot of people don't know what it's going to be until they're in that moment, and
Mhm.
it's too late.
And the disbelief, like, this isn't really happening to me. That person can't really mean it. I must be misunderstanding what's happening. And to hesitate, And we've always got the fear of God placed into us. You go take a CCW and they're like, pretty much if you use your gun, you're going to go to jail.
Yeah. If you can get this insurance, you will go to jail. You will get sued.
Yeah, exactly. So they scare the daylights out of you. And there should be a healthy fear around that. We don't want to be trigger happy citizens. That's not what we want. But at the same time, all the fear around it is making people afraid to defend themselves. And a lot of people even afraid to buy a gun in the first place.
Yep.
Yeah.
And fear, depending on where you live, repercussion for helping or defending yourself, It's so sad when I have women reach out to me and they're like, I live in like California or wherever and I can't have a gun, or it's too hard to get my CCW. I'm not allowed to have pepper spray, or I'm not allowed to have this. What do I do if someone tries to kill me or attack me? And I'm just like, I mean, at that point, you have to think about risk versus reward. How much do you value your life to where you may have to break a law to do it? Or the answer I don't like giving, because it's not just easy, it's move. You're going to have to move somewhere where, you are allowed to defend yourself. But obviously, people can't just up and reroute and, move themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. All kinds of situations, right? You can't just always uplift. Also, a lot of people want to say, oh, I'll just pepper spray somebody, as if there's no repercussions for that. And there absolutely could be repercussions for that. You can be charged with assault for using pepper spray on someone, right?
Yeah.
So no,
because even if you don't win, or if you don't lose in the criminal side of it, you are defending yourself, and the judge or the jury, whoever, they'll still come at you civilly. You might get sued in a civil court.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's we can go talk about all the reasons or how all the possibilities how things could go wrong all day, pretty much.
Oh yes, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, is there a story you could tell us about an experience you had that pushed you past what you thought you were capable of, and what you learned through that?
That would be the first officer-involved shooting I was in. Granted, thank God I didn't have to pull the trigger, but 2 years ago, it will be 2 years ago this September, we had a shooter here in one of our, bougie neighborhoods. It's a golf course estate community. A lot of money, very wealthy people live there, big houses. And then you've got the little Baytown shopping center with some kind of bars and family friendly shopping and boating and things to do, the marina. So it's a very wealthy and, one of those areas where nothing bad happens because all the rich people live here, and it has a guarded gatehouse. But we had a 21-year-old come down for his brother's bachelor party. Long story short, he left on foot from all of his buddies, and he was walking down the street, leaving the community, and basically every car either coming in or leaving that main kind of golf course community coming in, he was just walking up and shooting point blank into their vehicles.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was getting ready to get off work. I was off at midnight. I think it was 11 o'clock. I literally called my husband. I said, hey, gonna go wash my truck, and then I'll, be heading home soon. Literally 30 seconds later was when my computer started having 911 calls dropping, and then dispatch was coming over the radio saying, hey, we're having shots fired calls over in Baytown. And I'm like, Baytown does fireworks every night. It's probably just fireworks. So then I kept seeing more 911 calls dropping, and as I'm reading the notes and looking through it, it's saying, oh, someone was shot in the back, or someone was shooting into the cars. And I'm like, do we have some drunk idiot with a gun going and shooting into cars in the parking garage? My brain was thinking of all the things that was probably going on, and people were not getting hurt, until finally I was seeing the note saying, oh, my boyfriend got shot in the back. Oh, he shot into my car. So I'm like, I think we actually have a real shooting. I text my husband, or I voice text him. I'm like, hey, just kidding. I think I'm going to a shooting. I don't know if it's real or not. I don't know when I'll be home. And so I think the third or fourth car on scene. We had some deputies already in that area. One of the deputies was just south of the location, heard the shots because he had his window down. So he went over to investigate. We pulled up to the first guardhouse, and we're all getting out because they said, oh, it's by the roundabout. It's by the roundabout. And the guardhouse is at the first roundabout. So we get there, we all get out. And we're like, we don't see a shooter. And then you just hear pop, 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 and car next roundabout, and I'll kind of just caravan in. I'll get out. I have to get out, get my rifle out of the back seat and block up my truck. We're all kind of taking cover. And then I hear my sergeant say, he's running from the wood line. But we had 2 wood lines. So I'm like, I'm looking at the left wood line. Dude was coming from the right wood line. So I never actually saw him until my sergeant did actually get him with his rifle and shot him. He turned to fire towards us, towards the deputies, and the sergeant got him with his rifle, hit him in his left arm. He was left-handed, which forced him to drop the pistol.
Nice.
And he was down. So then we all, broke cover and came up with him, had him at gunpoint, and he was just face down in the grass. I had to throw a tourniquet on him, and I had just gotten out of EMT school. So it was like, whoa, I'm having like my first like real like medical emergency. But what pushed me, I think, through something, I don't know if I would say I didn't know if I could do it or not, but it was the first time I ever had to be in a situation where now I had to render aid to somebody who just tried to kill multiple people. And like having that go through my mind while trying to like bandage him up and tourniquet him, ask him questions, figure out what's going on. We still don't know if we even have, more than one shooter. The scene was not safe. We ended up having a vehicle fire call as we're waiting for the ambulance to come get our suspect. And that was because the dude shot into a car and he hit a local kid that was 21 years old. That kid tried to drive himself to the hospital right down the street, and he ended up crashing his car.
Wow.
Literally right at the edge of the parking lot to the hospital, to the ER. And I'm assuming he maybe blacked out at the wheel. For whatever reason, he crashed into the bushes, and then the catalytic converter over all that brush and leaves caught fire, and his car completely engulfed in flames, and he died, I think, alive.
That's such a tragedy.
From the fire. So it's just like a whole, like the most chaotic situation I've ever been in my life, because we have multiple crime scenes of where multiple people got shot in different places. Because the first guy who got shot in the back. He drove to the Courtyard Marriott. Random people started rendering aid to him and calling 911. Then we had another lady like running down the highway, I think hysterically trying to flag down help because he came up to their car and shot in it but didn't hit anyone. Then we had the kid who did get shot and then died over with the vehicle fire. And then we have the crime scene with our suspect where we shot him. And it was like a whole thing. It was one of those, I'm around gunfire a lot, obviously, at the range, but that was the first time I've ever been around gunfire that was like in a dangerous real life situation. And I'm like, it's like that slow motion hits. You're just like, bullets are, I think, flying over the top of my head right now. This is so surreal.
Oh my God.
I can't believe it's really happening.
How did that make you feel?
It made me feel that no matter how much like adrenaline training I've done and, fitness training and everything, you can never be 100% prepared for any given situation like that. Like you can, obviously you can be prepared, but you're never going to know exactly how the situation's going to go down. And even though, when you're doing drills like that at the range, someone's not shooting back at you in real life. So it's kind of like your mindset is there. You're, getting the heart rate up, but it's not like that. Oh shit, this is real. Like everything I've done up until this point, this is where it matters. And then you can kind of see where like people go condition black and that tunnel vision comes in, or the auditory exclusion. So, and they teach you about that in the police academy. And then I learned which they taught us also in the academy, it can take 24 to 72 hours to really like remember that traumatic incident. Because afterwards they ask, the investigators come out and they're like, what happened? And I'm like,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I do know, but it's still like so fresh in my head, but like jarbled. And so it took a good probably 48 hours before I was kind of like, okay, now I can kind of piece together the sequence of events.
Wow. That's such an amazing story.
And I didn't even have to pull the trigger, just being there on scene, knowing what was going on. I'm like, yeah, this is crazy. And, when it's in an area where it's, like I said, people think it's relatively safe and things like this don't happen. And then it happens. You're like, right. Oh man. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about that from the citizen's perspective. And I think about carjackings all the time, but I mean, that kind of scenario I've certainly never considered. Not really.
Yeah, imagine you just had a great night with your husband or whoever, maybe had a couple drinks or went and had some fun with the family, and you're leaving to go back to the hotel or go back home, and some drunk guy just walks up to your car with a gun and just starts shooting into it.
Right, which you pretty much don't have a chance without time, who just walks up to you. You're not thinking he's going to hurt you. That's absurd. I suppose if you were like in a line of cars and you could see him coming, shooting, and then the next car and shooting, you might have 2 seconds to draw your gun and defend yourself.
Yep.
But how many women, especially, but men too, have their gun on them and is actually accessible when you're in the car.
Very few, or I feel like people aren't actually honest about whether they do or not. People, yeah, I carry it in the car all the
Yeah.
time, but then they probably carry it like shoved between their seat, and then maybe they got to slam on the brakes, and now it's fallen to a position where it's unavailable, or it's in the glove box, or it's in their purse on the passenger seat with the zipper, or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So if at all possible, you want to have it. What I like to do when I'm driving, I'm bad because I don't always do it, but is if you normally would conceal carry, once you get in the car, if you can tuck your shirt behind and actually open carry when you're in the car, so that if you do have to draw it, you're not messing with, oh God, the seatbelt and my shirt and I'm stuck and trying to figure that all out. It's not like you can practice that super easy on your own. I mean, you'd have to do it very purposefully at home if you were going to do that. So that'd be a good spot. But then there's also mounts that you can put in your car, and they attach to the holster. You just slide the holster right on. It works really well. But again, yeah, you just don't expect something like that. That's a crazy story.
And there was no traffic, so every car, it was probably, because it was 11 o'clock at night, so it wasn't heavy traffic. So each car, and I think one of the people said, oh, we just thought he was some drunk guy like stumbling in the street. We were going to maybe check on him, make sure he's okay, and then he pulled a gun out.
Yeah. Yeah, geez. Well, that kind of leads me into this other question I wanted to ask you about what you've learned so far with your law enforcement experience about being your own first responder.
Yeah, and actually, I feel like it's been touched on a lot just recently based on just different Instagram posts and stuff I've seen. But not until getting into law enforcement did I realize law enforcement has a lot of ability to help people, obviously, but there's also a lot of situations where you can't. Like stalking cases and harassment cases and things like that are actually a lot harder to pursue and persecute and make arrests on than people I think realize or know. Just because you don't know, you think, oh, this guy is like following me, like he should get arrested, he's creeping me out. Or even like getting a restraining order. I didn't realize sometimes, you think you can just get a restraining order on anybody. You can't, you have to be able to prove that your life is in danger, with this person for the judge to sign off on it. So where, women just need to know it's not always that police don't want to or aren't doing their job. It's that we can't. And recently I went to a police training in Texas and we spoke with a female police chief, and she was telling us how she's had a stalker for like a few years. And it was just crazy. I'm like, you're the chief of police and you've got a stalker, and you have to have your own officers texting you and calling you every day, warning you, oh, we see him in front of your house. Oh, we see him down the street. And there's nothing that anybody could do about it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm like, that's sad, that it can get to that point and make you that uncomfortable, make it feel like they are invading your life and your privacy, but technically they're not breaking any laws. So hands are tied and really nothing can be done except you just have to be aware of your own life and, what's going on around you and keep yourself safe the best you can.
Yeah. Well, that's so interesting. It just further proves that no one's excluded. You could be chosen by somebody who thinks that you are exciting to them and they would love to stalk you or do worse to you. Right. I've heard a number of stories about that. And it's like, I'm a strong, empowered, independent woman. No one's going to pick me. Like, I know how to make eye contact and to be aware of my surroundings. And that's just not going to happen. But it absolutely could have happened. And I think someone like that, of course, I don't know the chief of police story necessarily, but something like that implies a certain amount of thought on your stalker's part. So they might be more of a smart criminal, and that's more dangerous. What would you recommend to somebody who does have a stalker who is paying attention to their moves? What should they be? What can they do?
Let all your closest friends and family know and have some kind of ability to call for help in any given moment. Whether obviously your phone or something, they make those little necklaces and stuff now. That's like an ADT call, whatever you can. Get armed, keep yourself safe in all moments, like even when you're at home. Because you just never know if they're going to pop up and be peeping Tom through your window or what they're going to do. And it sucks because we sit here and we tell people it's not about living in fear and being paranoid. It's about being prepared. But sometimes in that situation, it does lead into that paranoia because you're like, oh my God, are they following me? Where are they? But again, it's okay. Now I'm not paranoid. I'm prepared. And I'm going to try to be as ready as I can be if worst case scenario does happen. Hope for the best, plan for the worst, assume things could take a turn at any given moment, and that way you can be as prepared as you can be, which is hard. Nobody wants to live like that.
Yeah.
But
what do you think someone should do as far as reporting to the police? If, let's say, we got something minor going on where it just doesn't feel right, they haven't done anything wrong, but like what do you think they should do?
I think you should still report it and start that paper trail. Even if the police can't do anything about it, at least you've started something. Because if it were to get to the level, to where it is criminal now or something can be done, at least you've already started something. Or if, you want to have something to prove that you've acknowledged the situation.
Mhm.
Because you would hate to have something then happen and the police are like, well, we didn't know about it. You've never reported it. How do we know you're telling the truth? You've never said anything about it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And like you said, there's a process for getting a no contact order or an anti-harassment order. So having some proof to back yourself up, I'm sure helps, right?
Yes. Because, I know with harassment in the state of Florida, it does have to be an ongoing kind of thing. It's not like someone called my phone a bunch of times yesterday and wrote me some mean text messages and then they stopped after a day. It's annoying, but that's usually not the level of harassment to where it can be a criminal offense. So know your state laws, maybe seek some guidance from the local PD or sheriff's office and ask. And yeah, just take notes, document everything, screenshots, pictures, dates, times, write it down, keep your journal, and start that paper trail with the police department. Even if it's something as simple as, hey, I want to report this person. I noticed he follows me every single day. This is their name, and then get an incident number. Because the police can usually give you just an incident reference number for you making that phone call or making that appointment with the department and getting that big report started.
Yeah. And when you call 911, they can initiate a instant number for you right away as well. So
usually, yes. Yeah.
Yes. True.
As long as the signal. Sometimes ours drop as a 911 call, and I'm like, I don't know what that phone number is because it's coming through as 911 and then part of their phone number. But you know that from dispatch.
Yep. It's not as advanced as we'd like it to be.
Yeah. For sure. People think it'll just drop and we know their exact GPS coordinates immediately. I'm like, not always.
Yeah. Let's talk about fitness a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think that having a baseline level of fitness is helpful in your own self-defense, in your own daily life, in not being a victim?
Absolutely. And my husband and I always talk about it as far as he always quotes, an unhealthy body leads to an unhealthy mind. And that's so true in so many aspects. So physical fitness is important in so many things, self-defense, even just learning how to shoot firearms. We get a lot of women who they've never worked out or they don't work out, they're weak. So just learning to manipulate a firearm actually requires a decent amount of, hand and forearm strength. So it's a lot harder to start that process. And obviously over time, the more you practice and manipulate, the stronger you're going to get. But we notice a lot of students have a harder time learning even just to rack the slide and everything because they're just so weak. And as women, biologically, we're just naturally weaker in our upper body. We're stronger in our lower body. You don't shoot guns with our legs. So, you got to build up that strength. And then just the more fit you are and confident with yourself, mentally, you're going to be stronger. If poop hits the fan, you're probably going to be able to handle the situation a little bit better because your body is just working naturally the way it's supposed to. And then, of course, but you do have to fight back. You're going to put up a much better fight being physically fit. I think back to that female in Tampa. I think it's been about 2 years now. She was attacked in her apartment gym by, I think he was another dude that lived in the apartment complex.
Yeah, I think I saw the recording of that.
That viral video, she's a bodybuilder. So she had that physical strength to fight him off.
Mm-hmm. Well, and she just didn't give up. It went on a long time.
She persevered, she pushed through and persevered. But, if you get knocked to the ground and you're not physically able to get back up, you're going to have a much harder time.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And even, nobody wants to have to use their gun, but you're more likely to need it if you're physically unable to defend yourself or run away, right? And if you're moving slow, they're going to catch you. And they'll probably, most men are faster than women anyways, just as a baseline. And so, if you're already slow on top of that, your chances of defending yourself without your gun are slim.
Oh, yes.
And that should scare you a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. I see a lot of great, self-defense techniques out there. And I know there's just so many. A lot of them, when I think about it, I'm like, the average person probably can't do that. They probably can't get someone, if it's some kind of jujitsu on the ground move. I'm like, how many people are actually physically capable of doing that with their body, if somebody's on top of them? And it's, things to think about. If you can't, even in our classes, we teach the basic movement with our class. So something as simple as taking a knee because you might have to kneel behind cover. I hate to say it, it's amazing how many people overestimate their ability and they can't do something as simple as get to a kneeling position and then get back up.
Yeah, definitely. Man, Yeah, go to the gym.
Yeah. That fine line of obviously you don't want to like, upset feelings, but at the same time you can't sugarcoat it.
Yeah, definitely. And also, as you know, I'm a big advocate for freedom, for personal freedom. And that also means freedom from being sick. It means financial freedom. It means freedom in all aspects. And so if your health is a dumpster fire, how free are you to live life on your own
Yeah.
terms, to do what you really want to do, and to experience life the fullest that you possibly can? And so it's
Mhm.
just so important to take care of that aspect of your life. I always want to give some kind of like recommendation for training for if somebody is like, okay, I know I need to get in shape. I don't even know where to start. And I do want to keep myself safe. Like, you don't need to train for a marathon, right?
No.
So, what do you
Yeah.
recommend as far as like a training regimen for somebody who wants to be able to defend themselves the best that they can?
I mean, you really can't go wrong with weight training. Go take obviously I worked for Orange Theory, but I really liked the Orange Theory classes because it was a combination of cardio and strength training. So if you do want that overall, if you can find, if you're more of a group fitness person, go find those gyms that offer those kind of group fitness classes, but make sure it has some strength training involved. Don't just go, I mean, I like Zumba, Zumba's fun, but doing Zumba 4 nights a week and dancing isn't going to build that muscular strength to strengthen your bones, increase your flexibility, and all those things that are going to be a lot more applicable to having to fight somebody than, you're not going to salsa your way out of someone trying to strangle you.
It's funny. I haven't even thought of Zumba in years for some reason. Like, I didn't even realize that was still happening, but it must be. A lot of people love it.
Yeah, I think it's still pretty popular because I know from personal training, even if, unrelated to firearms, people who want to like lose weight and get strong, they think they got to do cardio for months and months and months, get the fat off, and then start building muscle. I'm like, no, no, no. You want to start working to build that muscle immediately, which is going to, and then in return, burn more fat. And you just, there's so many benefits to the weight
Right. You
training.
get your
You want to build your muscle.
exactly. Your body starts to work for you in your off time as well. Yeah.
That's what's gonna strengthen your bones. That way your bones are less brittle in case someone tries to snap your arm or, you trip or fall or anything.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a big fan of HIIT just because you
Yeah.
do get those cardiovascular benefits as well as the power. And then if you ever had
Yes.
to fight back against somebody, you're used to having your heart rate way up there.
Mm.
If the first time your heart rate goes to 180 because you're fighting against somebody and your heart stops because you're not
Yeah.
trained for that.
Yes.
Well, it's not your fault for being attacked, but it's your fault for not getting in shape to where you can push your body to its maximum. And that's hard, especially when you're first starting out. But these are things that can just be built upon incrementally.
Oh yeah.
So if
Absolutely.
walking up 8 stairs at a time and taking a break, walking back down and walking up 8 stairs again, if that's where you need to start, great, start there. And you'll be so surprised at how quickly your body adapts and you can do so much more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't have to jump right into the gym 6, 7 days a week, 2, 3 days a week, and find where you can fit it into your schedule. Whether it's at home, you go to the gym. Something's always better than nothing.
Yeah. What about fitness with your firearms training? Are there exercises people can do when they're out on the range to make themselves a better shooter and in a more realistic situation?
Yeah, I mean, even like little tools like those little stress balls and things that make your grip, stronger and work your forearms. Gosh, I mean, lunges and squats and things. Like I said, you never know when you're going to have to lunge or squat or get behind a cover. You're not always going to be standing up straight and tall. Yeah, if someone's returning fire, you're not going to be like, what's going on? You're going to be usually crouched behind something.
Yeah.
So working on, your leg movements, your squats, your lunges, your curtsy lunges, even stability exercises. I like the Bosu ball, balancing on the Bosu ball with just one foot, and that's going to strengthen your ankle joint and your stabilizer muscles because you never know when you're going to have to be agile and change direction. So I know. Actually, I did it for a little bit. I was kind of posting some videos of exercises that would directly benefit of shooting, being on the range like competition shooters. They're constantly changing direction and stopping. So I'm like the skater exercises where you jump from one leg to the next, kind of like an ice, like a skater. That's going to help because now you're working those stabilizing muscles, jumping from one foot to the next, your core. Because when you're running on the course and you got to stop and not cross the line and take your hits, your core is working, your upper body's working, but then your legs and everything too, you're likely to fall over because you're doing those exercises to kind of build, your agility as well.
Awesome. Those are such good suggestions. We're going to do our tactical talk on July 14th, and it's called Fit to Fight. And we're going to get into a lot of those types of exercises and how you can make yourself fit enough to where you can survive if you ever get attacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, even just holding a weight up like you're holding a gun. If you have to know you have to hold your gun in position for a while.
Yeah.
See all the guys with the barbells and they're holding it like a rifle and walking on the treadmill and kind of looking silly. But I mean, hey, you're building your muscle in kind of a way that's directly related to what you would be doing out in the field.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just imagining this. It's awesome. All right, awesome. Well, how can someone learn more about Alpha Female Tactical?
Through any of our social media. We post a lot on Instagram. We do post a lot on TikTok, but of course, you'll see me with like a yellow banana gun half the time because I can't show firearms on most of my videos unless it's at the range. They can go to alphafemaletactical.com, our website, and that's going to have our monthly course listings and our contact information. So really, however they want to contact us, they can call, text, social media message, email. I'll be the one responding, so I'll see it every time.
Okay. Yeah, great. Is there any other way that they can support you other than obviously booking a class?
I mean, just even support on social media. Like every little bit helps because not only do we promote our classes, but we talk about a lot of other safety tips, self-defense, and then other tools that they could use, whether it is they want pepper spray or a certain concealed carry bag. We talk about a lot of different ways to conceal carry and accessorize, to keep yourself safe.
Great. Is there a message that you would like to send to the armed or the unarmed women of America today?
Remember, just live your life prepared, not paranoid. Don't leave without your gun if you can help it. And because the day you don't have it is the day you may need it. Just take care of yourself and put yourself first. And like we talked about earlier, you are your own first responder. And I am a first responder. We will get there when we can, but it probably won't be in time or fast enough to, make the situation go smoothly.
Right. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. This is a really fun conversation.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.